underground, but the light still shines. Yeah. Underground sports guru, speaking from the soul, yeah, we need you. Calling every play with a purpose, turning every field to a service. We're running this race, you lead us through.
Welcome to the first episode of the Underground Sports School Show. This is your man, Louis Bernhardt. And today, our first episode, we have none other than my best friend growing up, Jose Rodriguez. For sure. Thank you for having me. I was really happy when you reached out to me and said you were going to take off and go on this venture. Just happy to be here, honestly. Happy to see you take that step, that leap of faith. Mm-hmm. I'm here. I'm ready to talk. Yeah, man. Let me know what's up. So we're going to be sharing Jose's story a little bit, man. A little bit about his background, where he's from, how he grew up, and some of the trials and tribulations that we went through growing up, man, and how we persevered through that. So, Jose, tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you grew up, man, and where you grew up, what part of our town on the west side of Hialeah, and how that was for our childhood. Well, I mean, I could take it all the way back. So pretty much, I was born in Cuba, migrated over here at the age of 3. So pretty much, yeah, raised in Miami, raised in Hialeah. Migrated with my mom, my dad, my 3 brothers, and you feel me? Just like pretty much every other immigrant, humble beginnings, 6 people to a room, you feel me? And then, thanks to God, you feel me? Thank the Lord, The OG was she was a tough, she's still a tough one, she's still good, you feel me? So she jumped us out of poverty. She was a doctor. She was able to regain her titles, you feel me? But it was a rough ride, Just like, I think, a lot of us over here have that background. You have that background. A lot of our friends have that background. We're first generation immigrants, or our parents are. That's so pretty much, ran into all those obstacles that any immigrant family will run into. That's taking it back. So, we got here in 89 and nothing. We settled at my grandfather's house. It was a 2-bedroom, like I said, it was me and my brothers, my mom, my dad, and one room. So thank God I wasn't old enough to remember all that shit. You feel me? By the time I came to reality, we was doing pretty straight. We was all right. So, but nothing. That's where we landed. That's where That's where the story started. Started in Cuba, then Hialeah, and that's where I met you at. Absolutely, that's where I met you at. So speak a little bit about like the place in Hialeah where we grew up at. So it's a lot of lakes, right? You got North Twin Lakes, Palm Lakes. Palm Lakes is the elementary school you went to, right? Yeah. Me and a couple of other boys went to North Twin Lakes, and we got to an age where we kind of linked, right? After elementary school, we were getting into middle school, and all those lakes were combined in Miami Lakes, right? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your days in Palm Lakes and growing up there and playing for the Palm Lake City of Hialeah Parks and Recreation, and your journey there in the sport of basketball. And tell us a little bit about how you fell in love with basketball and how that developed in your childhood. Well, where we grew up, like you said, it's pretty interesting because it was a neighborhood and it was full of lakes. So everything kind of ended with lakes. All the city names. And I always tell everybody, my childhood was fun. You feel me? I had a real fun childhood. We were surrounded by lakes, so the summertime was super fun. We used to, hang out at the park. In the city of Hialeah, they had a really good parks program, recreational park program, which was kind of like to keep kids out of, right, out of drugs, out of the gangs, out of anything that could pretty much deviate you. And it was right. And it was for us. It was for the immigrants. It was for the kids that were less fortunate. You pay $10, right, and you go on field trips with the $10. They get your jersey, right, play all the sports, right, yeah. So it was definitely something that even though later on in life you kind of deviated, or at least we'll get there. No, I'm not gonna get there, but I'm saying I just want to tie that in. Absolutely. At the beginning, it definitely helped out a lot. Right. You know what I'm saying? It definitely helped out a lot, and
And nothing, like I said, it was amazing to me. My childhood, I loved my childhood. You feel me? I'm hanging out with my friend, you know, doing bullshit. You feel me? Hanging out, doing regular bullshit, and then playing sports at the same time. So that, you know, the summers were great because we would just jump from lake to lake. Yeah. To tie it back to what you were saying, you know, that the city was full of lakes. Right. We'd jump from this lake to this lake, and, you know, we'd just be like 10, 15 kids, just going swimming by. We'll go swimming, come back to the park, play ball, go hang out, play manhunt, right? Go jump on the elementary school roofs, you know, right. Shit. It was fun. It was fun. It was a fun childhood. And I got connected with basketball. To answer that question, I got connected with basketball pretty much at the parks. You know, pretty much at the parks. You would see the older cats. Back in the day when it was that era, the parks used to be on smash, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, even if y'all don't know what that is, packed, right? To the brim, like standing room only. Yeah, people would be like trying to get downs, they'll be fighting for the next downs. And it was something cool to see, you know, and you would get people from other cities come. You have, you know, Lo Moreno coming from Carol City, from Malacca, and you had the people from Hialeah. Right. And then you look at the older cats, and the older cats they used to have the 8-foot baskets. It was kind of weird, you feel me? So, and they were dunking and shit. And I was like, that shit look, that is hard. Right. You know what I'm saying? You didn't even have to have too many hops, you feel me, to get up there. So get up there. And look, we were 6, 7, 8 years old, and you're looking at them doing that. You're like, oh shit. And they're the people you're looking up to. Right. Not the best people to look up to, because it was, you know, it was a recreational park, and if there was some extracurriculars to say the least, right? A lot of interesting characters out there, you know. To say the least, but that's the people that we have. But I caught on to the basketball, you know what I'm saying? And then when I picked up the basketball, I never let it go. Like, that first part of my life. So I would leave school at 2 or 3 o'clock, and then I was playing basketball from 3 to 9. You know? Sure. And that's how I got attached to basketball. You know what I'm saying? And then watching Michael Jordan, you feel me? That was the Jordan era. Absolutely. Watching Jordan. Everybody wanted to be Jordan. I just wanted to be Jordan. I got the Jordan jersey. You feel me? I rocked the Jordan jersey at the park. Right. Thought I was Jordan and shit. So to add to that question, I know you mentioned your mom, Dr. Josefina Torre, right? Yeah. And you've seen how she grinded, right, to get you guys stabilized, right? Do you think some of your work ethic in basketball at a young age comes from that? Maybe you didn't know it at the time, but maybe the way that you saw her work, right, kind of baked into your desire to want to do something, right? Yeah, I think I definitely got like a competitive gene, you feel me, for sure. Like, you know, and anything that I jump into, like I get obsessive, or I get competitive. Right. So maybe, you know, it's definitely, you know, seeing her work ethic, I'm sure it had an influence, for sure. And, you know, she's a workaholic, so yeah, I definitely think I had an influence, and I definitely got that gene, that obsessive gene, you know. So like, I'll do something, and like, you want to do it all the time, you know, and then I want to try. You have to perfect it, be competitive at it, and try to get, well, okay, what's the highest level you can get to try to get to that level? You know, I'm looking ahead and just trying to get better at whatever it is. And at that time, it was basketball. You know, I fell in love with that sport, and I was playing basketball the whole day. Right. So did you have any influence aside from the people? You mentioned you had 3 older brothers, right? And the main one that I can think of is your second, the second oldest, which is George, right? And George, we called him Loco, right? And you, we grew up calling you Loquito, right? Because you guys were basically 2 peas in a pod. George is what, about 6 years older than you, maybe? 7? Yeah. He's 7 years older than me. Okay. And yeah, you could say that he was like the brother that, you know what I mean, I probably looked up to the most. Right. All my brothers, in a way, I looked up to them, you know, but me and him probably had that, you know, a little bit, you know, weird. He was definitely like the one I was like, oh shit. Yeah. You know, you always get attached to certain people, or it could be even a friend or other individuals, but yeah, he was definitely a big influence in my life, and they always looked out for me. You know what I'm saying? All my brothers looked out for me. I was blessed to have 3 brothers. And they took care of me, you know what I'm saying? They took care of me. You know, they still look out to this day. But yeah, George was definitely the one that I looked up to like the most, you know what I mean? And he was at the park a lot. Absolutely. My older brother wasn't there too much, and while I wasn't really into sports,
Right.
But he was there, but he wasn't there like George.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, they used to call him Loco, and then so I adopted that nickname.
Right.
Which is kind of like it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time, because you get that nickname and it's like, oh shit, Loquito, okay. So you're trying to live up to you're growing up, and you're it's like you're trying to live up to a certain status, certain image, whatever that maybe that name comes with or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah.
All right. So at that time, during the Palm Lakes days, you won't say it, but I'll say it, man. You were a City of Hialeah Parks and Recreation legend, man. Like, I remember the first time I went to this guy's house, and I've never seen so many trophies, right? I'm talking about championships, MVPs, right? And this is not a small town. This is a town with maybe 12 or so parks, right? I can't remember off top, maybe 12 to 14 parks, right? And you were winning city championship, right? From ages 6 through 8, right? All the way through 13 and 14 before we got to high school, right? So talk a little bit about that and how you dominated, playing the position that you played, which is point guard, and talk a little bit about your coaches at the time and how they had an influence in your life and in your game, aside from your natural skill and talent that God blessed you with.
Yeah. I think it all goes back to and I think this goes to any thing that you do in life, you know what I mean? The more you do it, the better you get, So the way I got good was pretty much just doing it a lot. And since I was like a little park rat, you feel me? I was in the park all day. I spent more time. I would get home at 9:30, 10 o'clock every night, just go home to sleep. So I was just dribbling the ball all day, shooting the ball all day. And then, there's in the parks, it was the lowest level of I would say of constructive training and coaching, you know what I mean? It's recreational. The coaches there, it's a recreational park, like I said, right? It was for immigrants,
17, 18.
So you got it,
coaches, right?
Exactly. And they might have played
their first job, right? Yeah.
They might have played baseball in high school, or they might have played something else. So really, it was just me doing it a lot, and then maybe watching it on TV and just imitating, the legends, you know what I'm saying? The people that played in the NBA at the time and all that stuff. And then watching the cats in the park. There was some good ones. Pedro was stud.
Right.
And then Venegas, he was from your park. He was a stud.
Right. Shout out to Luis Venegas and Pedro Lasus. Some of the guys we looked up to that played ball at a high level, in our city.
So pretty much I just didn't let go of the ball, you know what I mean? And that's what got me really good. But the coaches were really good as well. In a certain sense, like I said, at that level, they were very uplifting, They were uplifting. They treated you good. They looked out for you. Carlos Villanueva.
Yep.
Ernie. Right. Ovidio. I remember Ovidio. He was an older coach.
Yeah. Shout out to those Palm Lakes coaches, man, which they had an impact on. Marcelino. Yes. Alex. Yeah. Those are some throughout the year. So Carlos, I think in your formative years, right? 9, 10, 11, 12, around there, he's probably your main coach, right? With part of your development into adolescence, right? I know he was mostly a soccer guy, right? So you think some of his influence, liking soccer, kind of directed in the way that he coached you in basketball?
He was a good athlete, because he was a really good soccer player, and he was decent at basketball.
Okay.
So he wasn't a bad coach. No, he wasn't a bad coach. Like I said, at that level, they were all pretty good. They were more uplifting and anything, encouraging, right, and things like that. But it wasn't you had to get it yourself, is what I'm trying to say. You had to practice yourself and all, because nobody there was going to tell you, hey, you got to shoot the jump shot, you got to square up, you got to get yourself right, yeah, form right. So,
how to attack the basket, right? Your 1-2 dribble moves, right? So. And being a guard, that's probably the primary thing, right? Is your ball handling, being able to see the court, right? Yeah. Dribble with your head up, right?
There's a lot of things, a lot of kids, they learn how to shoot at the age of 4, right? And they learn the basics from an early age. Like I said, it was the recreational center, where you shoot them $10, you're straight. You know what I'm saying? So the employees are also just kind of there. Cool hanging out. Some employees were just there hanging out, letting us wild out, You feel me? And they were not even really like, oh, I'm trying to get his J on point. I'm trying to develop him. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, they weren't tripping.
it was my obsession that got me good. At that level, you know, when I got, you know, a little deeper into high school and stuff like that, I ran into some coaches that really taught me the fundamentals,
Right.
of basketball, you know, and that's a little later. You should be learning that early, but it is what it is, you know.
Right.
But that obsession could get you good,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yeah, it's what's gonna keep you dedicated.
But not taking away from everybody, from all those coaches. No,
Yeah.
because they did a lot. They did a lot. They kept us out of trouble. You know what I mean? They gave us a lot of good memories.
Yeah.
They did a lot of extracurricular stuff. You know, it was a blessing. That definitely, the parks to me was a blessing.
Absolutely. I can definitely relate.
Sure, without the parks,
We would have been lost way before we actually got lost, right?
that's what I'm saying. That kept me like 1 foot out, 1 foot in. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
it kind of like kept you cruising, and then whatever. And little by little, everybody would just
Yeah.
hit that turn. You know what I mean?
We'll get to that in a second, but that brings you to the point, right around 11, 12. That's when I first met you, right at Miami Lakes Middle. And
Yeah, we met in 6th grade.
we struck up a friendship, you know, and, you know, in that transition, I think you had one of the hardest moments in your life, right? And I remember going to a basketball game. We were in Oakland Park, right? That's more going towards the east side of Hialeah. And you had a playoff game that day, right? And we had heard chatter in school that you hadn't been in school because you might have lost somebody very important to you around that time.
Yeah.
So if you can tell us a little bit about that time and
Yeah, it was definitely a hard time. You feel me? It was the old boy. You feel me? He had passed away when I was 6. When I was in 6th grade, yeah, not 6. You know, he was my best friend. You feel me? My mom, you feel me? The little girl, she was working crazy hours. So my pops was really the one that took care of us, picked us up from school, did this, and did everything with us. So, you know, it was a pretty hard loss at that time. You feel me? Definitely traumatic. Definitely, you know, it was something hard to deal with. Definitely something that definitely impacted me. You feel me?
absolutely.
Going back to that day, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember you asking me like, damn, what happened? What's up? You weren't in school. Yeah. And I remember looking back at you and I was like, nah, yeah, my old boy passed away. You feel me? Yeah, and shit, even right now talking about it, that shit is, you know what I'm saying, it's something hard. You feel me? That's how close I was to the old boy. But, you know, in retrospect and just kind of looking back at it, you know, you got to kind of learn to deal with death a little better. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's gonna die. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's gotta die. It's one of the hardest things to deal with.
Absolutely.
But sometimes we can let that linger in. You know, and I definitely let that linger in you feel me, in my life. You know, just because I was so young. But something that's very natural. It happens.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. You know, we gotta learn to enjoy the moments.
Absolutely.
You know, so I did have a lot of good moments with the old boy, you know, so in retrospect, just looking back, I had a good 12 years ago, you feel me? I was blessed with 3 brothers.
Yeah.
So, you know, the old boy passed away and I still had, you know, my brothers there to look out for me. Right. Good friends, you know, a lot of them in this room right now, you know what I'm saying? But definitely something that impacted me, you know, I still remember that game that day.
Yeah.
And it was something that, like, I felt like, you know, like a little emptiness, you feel what I'm saying? So, right. I don't even think maybe it wasn't even the same after it. You know,
Yeah.
You know, the passion was still there, but it wasn't there, you know.
Right. So you think that was maybe the start of your passion for basketball kind of dimming a little bit at that point?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
You know, I just remember seeing,
and in the sense of like it affecting you like in a way like, oh damn, like, you know, like you're depressed, you know what I'm saying? Because anybody like that's close to you, brother, sister, mother, father, whatever, somebody passes away, you're gonna go through a period of time where you're depressed. I mean, some people don't, you know, some people deal with it way better. But I know for sure I was depressed for a long time. So that affects you on your day to day.
Absolutely.
You know, but no, it was it what it is. You know. Rest in peace, little boy.
Rest in peace, little boy, for sure, man.
Definitely always felt like I had like him, you know what I'm saying, watching my back regardless, you feel me?
Right.
You know, like his spirit was always there.
Right.
Still here, you know? So,
Absolutely. But yeah, try to cheer it up a little bit, because that's tough. You know, that's a tough transition and a tough loss, especially at 12 years old, right?
yeah.
And like emotionally, you might not know how to process it at the moment, right? And you might have questions, right? You know, for God, right? Like why now, right? Why at this age, right? But as you've gotten older, do you find any like comfort in knowing that you're gonna see your dad again?
Exactly, yeah, and that's what definitely keeps you at peace, you know what I'm saying? What keeps you at peace is that when you check out, you know, you definitely, you know, you're going to heaven. Yeah, I believe in it, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go, I'm gonna see my peers, my friends,
Yeah.
you know, my family members, and, you know, be in a different place, eternal life. But that gives you that peace of mind, like, yo, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be straight. But nevertheless, it's something difficult to deal with.
Absolutely.
Even at an older age, you know what I mean? Even at an older age, like you lose somebody you love, you're gonna feel it. So,
transitioning from that, I remember, you know, us going into adolescence, right? And, you know, even with your loss, you know, we found ourselves kind of, you know, trying to prove ourselves a little bit, right? And getting some testosterone and wanting to prove ourselves, right? Not just in the sports field, right? But gaining respect, right? Wherever we went, you know, and not being scared, you know, and holding down our territory. Can you speak a little bit about that? You know, we got into.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, like we grew up like in a city where that was like a thing, you know, like the La Guaperia, you know, the gangster shit and all that shit. You know, it's cool because it builds character and stuff like that. But really, ideally, it's not really, you know, kind of like the environment you wanna put a person in. It causes a lot of pressure. You know what I'm saying? Because you gotta. So it might that might be a good thing, because it you know, you gotta perform at that when you gotta perform. But we definitely grew up in that environment. You know, a lot of our friends took the full gangster route. You know, you know what I'm saying? We de vez en cuando nos metíamos en unos problemas and this and that, get into little fights, do this, do that, shit that just go through all the time. You know what I mean? And that it was just kind of like part of that city. Right. You know, it's kind of like part of that city.
You call la intriga, la
guaperia, right? A bunch of characters. At the end of the day, it's a bunch of characters. You feel me? It's a bunch of characters, but
you know, people trying to make a name for themselves.
It's part of the story.
Absolutely,
it's part of the story. It's part of the story.
And it's funny that you mention it, you know, because sometimes, you know, you might look at it just as negative, but there's some character building moments, right?
For sure.
In some of those situations, right? And you know, we got people here that have been there with us, right? When it's grind time, right? When it's that time, and you kind of see the loyalty, right? In even if you're outnumbered, right? Like there was a love and a respect for each other that we weren't gonna let our next guy get hurt, right? And we had to do what we had to do. Yeah. And I think that created, you know, as bad as it sounds, you know, because it's violence. It created a camaraderie, and
it's a brotherhood.
It created a brotherhood, and it created just loyalty where you know you can, you know, step anywhere and not necessarily start anything, but
have each other's back. You know, have each other's back, and that definitely creates character. You know, and like you said, there's a lot of us here, and we all had each other's back. We all grew up real tight, right? You know, we all got mad love for each other. So even when you would pull up to school, you know, we went to the school. It was. Yeah, I'm Moreno, and the other guy was the Chicos, you know, and
it was the vibe.
When you got in there, you felt the tension, you felt the pressure,
right?
And the fact that we would hang out with each other, we always had each other's back. You know what I'm saying? That made that little tapa made it a little easier, right, to get through, knowing that you had your boys there with you and stuff like that. But you know.
Let's talk a little bit about Lakes, man. Once we got out of Miami Lakes Middle, you know, we And not to skip through, man, we do got a city championship together, right? 13 and 14. Right. Parks and Recreation.
That's right. You came. You played it in Oakland, and then you.
Yeah. I played in Oakland first because that's where my grandmother lived, right? And then all my friends were over there in Palm Lakes. I shout out to North Twin Lakes. That's my first school, and my first park, but they was getting in too much trouble over there, so I wasn't gonna come out.
Your grandma was like, "Oh yeah, I live on Palm Lakes." I love y'all because I lived right. So the city was the
love y'all boys
by 12th Avenue.
All y'all, I love y'all, but y'all was trouble, man.
The city was divided by 12th Avenue, and then from 12th Avenue by guy was Palm Lakes, and that was like the more chill side of Hialeah. And you cross the street right there, and that's where like all the fucking apartments are, all the projects. And,
right.
Yeah, ahí está Barcelona,
Right.
The straight delinquents, So
we love y'all boys.
But every once in a while, you guys will cross over to my park.
Right.
You know what I mean? Pepe will get kicked out and
they'll go to Palm Lakes,
Louis
right?
will be out there.
Yeah.
Tato will come out there.
Yeah.
De vez en cuando there'll be like 10 kids from the projects that will come play basketball. We'll be like, yo, get what the people, you know what I mean? Like, what's up? They're invading our park. Get out of here. But I was cool with everybody. I was cool with everybody because for some reason I just had like that
charisma.
I was just cool. Todo mundo was straight with me. I was straight with everybody from over there.
Yeah.
To this day, I got a lot of friends. Thank God I got a lot of you guys that I'm still in touch with. Even people from over there that I'm still in touch with, and I was able to keep those relationships. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So let's talk about
we won that championship. We won that championship.
Yeah.
The 13 and 14 championship. I think we played at Cotson.
Yeah, we played at Costin Park, right? And it was against Goodlet, I believe, and I remember you took over that game, it was tight at first, and your brother George was coaching us.
That's right.
I remember Ernie was our coach at the beginning of the season, and George is like, nah, let me coach, let me bring this team home, right? So that particular game, I remember it was a tight game, and, your brother whispered some things in your ear. He's like, hey, it's time to take over.
Yeah, he definitely.
You went to the basket, man, and you probably had close to 30 points, which is a lot. We're scoring 50-something points,
especially for me because I was more of a passer. You feel me? I used to like to pass the ball more than anything.
But it was takeover time, and I never forget that. That was
a good experience.
That was a good experience, man. Our 13 and 14 city championship. So from there, we go to Hialeah, Miami Lakes, right? That's our high school, right?
Yeah, it was super excited. Oh, gonna go nature man.
Yeah.
Play ball, go hang out.
Yep. So Raymond Benaby, right, was the coach over there at Hialeah, Miami Lakes. Yeah. And you were poised to start on varsity right away as a freshman, right? Which was is not a common thing, right?
Yeah, so it's like it was like a thing, like, okay, like if you're in ninth grade playing in varsity, you're
right.
That's like an accomplishment.
There's
like something I wanted to accomplish from there. So I ended up being able to work for that spot, and yeah, I earned that point guard, that starting point guard spot in ninth grade. It was a pretty cool experience. In Lakes, we had a good team, we had a good coach, Yeah. It was a really good experience. Played with Danny Boy, Teron, Dorian. I think that was, I don't know if he was in varsity at the time, but yeah, Bevel, William, we had a bunch of 6'5" guys. It was pretty good. And I got out there and I started rocking. It was a pretty it was a learning experience. I didn't kill it, but I had some good games, some bad games. But definitely gained a lot of experience. My playoff games were fire.
Yep.
Those playoff games, I did really good on the playoffs. Once I played in that playoff game against American high school, I had a couple the coaches from other schools hey, come over here, all right, what's up?
So let's talk about that a little bit. After your ninth grade year, you had how you said some exposure because you performed right in the playoffs and district championships. And those of you who might not know, it's the same thing as every metropolitan city, whereas the district is your main rivals, right? So the competition level is high, right? Because you're trying to get to that next level in the playoffs, right? And for our district, it was American High School, Barbara Goldman, right?
Yeah, at that time,
Highly High,
exactly. Yeah, they had the 6A
Carroll City, in Carroll City. So that was a 6A, which is the public schools, right? The bigger classifications, right? And you had some exposure to some private school coaches at that time, right? That were interested in bringing you over on a scholarship. Can you talk a little bit about that? And
Yeah. There was I think in that American game. I played really well. That was probably my best game of the season. We cut it pretty close. I think we lost by like 6. They had a really good team.
Yeah.
And nothing that day. I just went off. You know what I'm saying? I was crossing everybody up, making people fall.
right, going to the basket.
Putting up numbers, yeah, put some good plays up. Had the team, you know what I'm saying? Had that energy on the court, had the team going. And pretty much kept us in the game as a freshman. And I got the game ball that day, even though we lost. I heard the game ball. And nothing, it was after that, I guess, in the crowd there was a couple coaches from like some of the better programs in Miami, from Pace and from Northwest Christian. And the Pace coach was the one that, because Benaby, they kind of like, he was like kind of not gonna coach the next year. I don't know for what reason or whatever. And then the Pace coach he wanted me to jump on board, but then Benaby ended up coming back, and I ended up just staying at Lakes. And I played that sophomore year. Played the sophomore year there. So
But before we get to the sophomore year, after your freshman year, so the coach you're talking about is Coach Mark Lieberman, right? So Mark Lieberman at Miami Monsignor Pace, 5-time state champion. He went to 8 different state championships. So he's one of the more decorated coaches probably in the history of FHSAA as far as Miami, right? And at that time, he was probably definitely one of.
he's still, where's he coaching at now?
So last I seen, I know he coached at Louisville, right? Okay. He was at Louisville. Rick Pitino brought him in at Louisville, and the other school that he was at. This is bad podcasting, but it's the first one, so y'all gotta forgive me.
No, but that's fine. I mean, it's not like we don't follow him like
his last whereabouts.
But I know he has to be like he was a McDonald's All-American coach,
right?
At one point for the high school, like he was one of the best coaches in the nation. He was super involved with the kids.
Right.
All his 5 starters would go to college. He was definitely a great coach.
So he was last an associate head men's basketball coach at Southeastern University in the Sun Belt Conference. He also coached at FIU a little bit as well. So if he was scouting you, he had an eye for talent, definitely. So he's seen some promise in you to be able to maybe lead the charge your sophomore year at Pace. Was there a particular reason why you didn't take maybe a relationship you might have been in, a relationship at the time?
I mean, I was with a little female. I was in love with her in high school. Her name was Amy.
Shout out to Amy.
But I kind of that, but also I had Benaby. Benaby came back. So Benaby came back for the sophomore year. And him coming back for that sophomore year kind of just pulled me back into to Lakes. You feel me? And then I stayed in Lakes my sophomore year. So, and then when he left my junior year, and that's when I ended up going to Northwest Christian with Coach Pajot. Okay. Which him and Lieberman were tight,
Yeah.
But I ended up taking off to that school. That was one of the best experiences for sure. That was faith-based, so it was my first. I was in. You got a couple questions before that, or you want me to just go ahead?
Go ahead, have at it, man.
So after Lakes, after my sophomore year, and I ended up going to Northwest. I was introduced to the church early because we're from where we come from, Cubans, Dominicans, and all that.
Also Latin America,
like spiritual,
right.
With the Catholics, what I'm saying, with the Catholic Church and things like that. But the Catholic Church it's a great church. I go to Catholic Church now, but it's not as intense as a Christian system, And in that Northwest Christian, that was like the most. I went from HML, which was like It was chaos. It was chaos. We were hanging out, chilling all day, trying
to get into something, right?
Going to your crib, hanging out.
Absolutely.
Doing whatever, fighting.
Yeah.
If we're not fighting, we're skipping. If we're not skipping, we're just
with the girl
going out.
Trying to get into something.
We would take his brother's car. We're like 14, driving around the whole city, license, you know, and just on some bullshit. So then I ended up going to Northwest, and it was the most peaceful place in the world. I was like, what is this? It was like a crazy transition. I was like, yo, I wasn't ready for that. And it was just like, oh my God. I was like, I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to leave. Like, I was like, yo, you know, I was, you know me, I got that Cuban genetic. I'm hairy, super hairy. And I had to shave
every single day.
One day I pulled up to class and the teacher's like, hey, you got to shave, dog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm not shaving, you know, like I'm leaving my hair like that. And like, oh, you got to go home. So it was like a different transition.
Right.
But it was the best people in the world. And it was a great experience for me because, you know, I was like, there was so much negativity on the other side.
Right.
That it was like, it kind of saved my life.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of definitely saved my life because I was, for sure, like, you know, like I said, I was just,
you were teeter
playing with fire.
And we were at Lakes, you were already, you know, kind of delving a little bit into
other things,
extracurriculars, you know, making a little bit of money and whatnot, not to get too much into
just doing other stuff, you feel me?
Yeah.
And that, you know, that kept me like, bam, it locked me in. It kept me away from, you know, all my friends that I shouldn't have been around, which they're still my friends, you know, they're still my friends. But you're just like, you know, we just grew up in a certain environment that it was just, everything was just there for us.
Absolutely.
And we're like, yo, let me get that. I want to see what this is. I want to see what this is. It's appealing, you know, it's appealing. But that took me away from that for 2 years. It kept me enough time away where I could just, you know, be around this new set of people that they were just fully like engaged in religion and faith and you know, I had Bible class, all that stuff, and mind that there was not even one fight there in 2 years. And I'm like, yo, my first day in HML, it was like 12 fights the first day. It was wild, and it was always constant, you know, constant beef and constant this and constant that, and over there it was so calm, it was so peaceful, and it was a great experience. I met the best, you know, some of the best people in the world there. So for me, it was definitely a good transition, how everything worked out. I ended up going over there to Northwest Christian.
Yeah, this sticks out when we have that conversation, when we talk, when you used to tell me back then, you know, when you got to that school, you used to tell me like the peace, right? The peace. And
there was a peace there that was just like, it was unbelievable.
You know, the word says it, you know, like the peace that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts, right? When you're in Christ, right? That being a Christian school. So, you know, the demographic was basically the same as Hialeah Miami Lakes, because you have a melting pot of all kind of, you know, cultures, right? You got Hispanics, you got African Americans, you have West Indian, Caribbeans, right?
It was mainly African American at that school, so because it was over there, it was in 135th and like Second Ave right off on 95. So that was that area. You just some Hispanic kids and stuff,
right?
But it was super peaceful. I mean, you know, like it was hard to get used to because it was
you're out of like the norm, completely different environment,
out of the norm. But once I got used to it, and you know, I made a lot of good friends there. To this day, I'm friends with all of them, right? And yes.
And on the basketball side,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure, it was the Spirit, you know, the Holy Spirit leading there, and as your friend, I'm grateful that you were able to get that experience, you know, and you know, could have saved you from a lot more trouble, right? On the side that we were, right? Back at Lakes, right? So talk a little bit about your experience on the basketball court at Miami Northwest Christian with your coach, Anthony Pujol, your junior year, right? Just like Mark Lieberman, a decorated coach that went on to coach at Alabama, BCU, among other programs. And, you know, a guy that, you know, was buttoned up to say the least. How was that transition into Miami Northwest Christian and you know, your experience there, aside from, from the main part, which was the spiritual, which was the
Well, the experience was really good because once I got to that school, in HML, we learned some of the fundamentals, but it wouldn't really work on your one-on-one game. And Coach Boudreau was really like about just developing everybody's game and having everybody get better. If everybody gets better, the team gets better. So I learned how to shoot there. So imagine, that's what I was telling you. I was kind of tying that, in the parks, you're not really learning those fundamentals there. He would work on our bait, on our fundamentals, on our shooting, a lot of drills, a lot of ball handling, exercises, and just constant drilling, constantly improving your skill, and learn the fundamentals of basketball. And then he was just a great coach. We used to run a good defensive
full court press.
Yeah, the whole game. We used to press the whole game, and that's kind of what gave us the edge. But yeah, definitely I learned a lot from him. Discipline, work ethic, the fundamentals, constantly getting better. And then the group of guys that we were around with, that were around at the time were really good. All the coaches were good. Santana, Ramirez, right? Those group of guys over there, But started learning the fundamentals, started learning how to shoot, started learning how to do all that. Pretty much when I got to that school, really, really, really got into that. And got more exposure because he had a lot of connections and stuff like that with a lot of coaches. He was a good coach. He was, he ended up going to coach at the colleges, but I was already kind of like también, even though I was already in that school, my mind was somewhere else también.
Right.
And yeah, but it was good. It was good.
So you won a state championship, right? Your junior year, right? Which would be the 2003-2004 school year, right? How was that, the run that you guys made and being back at Lakes the first 2 years and getting into the playoffs and making somewhat of a run, but never playing in the state playoffs? How was it going to Northwest Christian and kind of playing at that level, right? Going to Lakeland, traveling for the Final Four, and getting through a tough slate of competition, right? And kind of elevating to that level. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good experience. We won 2 state championships they won the state championship the year before I got there. And then when I got there, we won it as well. I played with Eon.
Yeah, Eon Rivera.
Derek Parker. Derek Bass.
Yeah. The Luis Ramirez.
Zilo. Elon was on that team. Probably
Elon and Paco. Yep.
We had a great team, man. It was a great experience, going to Lakeland, getting that experience, going all the way, to the state championship, getting that ring, Back in the day, it was pretty cool, they would give you the little high school ring, kind of like if you were in college, or college or in the pros. So it was dope, we played against a lot of competition, They would always put us in good tournaments. Played again, I think, Alonzo G,
yeah, at Dwyer, Palm Beach Dwyer High School, right?
Made it to the league.
Some tournaments.
College made it.
Wayne Collins, right? At Miami High. Right. A few other college players at Rio.
Good games and good competition that we played against.
J.R. Smith, right, was in one of the tournaments.
Yeah, J.R. Smith was in one of the tournaments. We never played against him, but I saw him play. Yeah, I remember you listening to that. It was
that's our era.
But yeah, it was pretty dope. It was a great experience. It was an amazing experience winning that championship.
Yeah.
Something you for sure that you dream about as a kid. Yeah. So it was something good to check off that list of bucket list desires of goals. It was amazing for sure.
Was it what you expected? How was the feeling? Once you won that state championship, were you overjoyed or were you like, okay, what's next? Your competitive nature and all.
It was a joyful moment. Then after that, you just want to kind of like, you just think, you're just pretty much enjoying the moment at the moment.
Right.
And then you go to the off season and then the next year you want to defend your title, So the next step is just working on, okay, what are we going to do? Right. For next year, how are we going to how we're gonna protect this, this championship, make sure we get it back, make sure we get back into the finals and stuff like that. So that's the next thing you're kind of thinking about. But as far as it was everything I thought it would be, it was like I said, it was a very happy moment. It was an amazing experience. So, yeah.
Okay. And from there, you go on to your senior year, right? And it's time to defend the title. As far as the team overall, they were going for a 3-peat, right? Which is not too common.
The school, yes.
In high school basketball, right? You think of 3-peats and you think about the Jordan Bulls and, the Shaq and Kobe Lakers and not many teams, right? But, I know we're talking high school, but it's still a tall
accomplishment. It's an accomplishment.
It's a tall task, right? How were things going into your senior year? Like, me personally, the summer before your senior year was probably your peak of your basketball prowess. I remember watching you at Summer League at FIU, and your game was tip top.
You become a senior, so you had those 4 years of just working hard, getting your game better, constant practice, constant competition,
right?
Off season, on the season. Just all those years, all those reps, right? All those hours that you have put in, it shows off, and then it shows off on that last year. That's supposed to be for sure your best year. So absolutely, that's definitely, like you said, that was definitely my peak. And también it was a time I was still kind of like not all in,
right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Why were you not all in? If you were excelling, right? You had won the state championship, right? You were ready to play for another one. What in your mind or in your heart, right, made you not all in, right? What do you think the cause of that was? If you can talk a little bit about that.
Just kind of like the outside influences, hanging out,
right?
At high school, partying, chilling. Instead of practicing or you hang, you do some bullshit,
right?
Pretty much that to sum it up, so the work ethic you're supposed to be applying to get to that next level, you're not applying it,
right?
So if you're not applying it, then you're gonna get to where you're gonna get to, so and those things made me kind of deviate, so it was. If I could look back, those are things that I would have definitely
done differently,
avoided for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely avoided. For any younger cat, what I'm saying, that's maybe like in high school now, they have a lot of talent, and they, everything's gonna be set out for you to go and grab, or to go and like dubbing, like dabbing and stuff like that. Whether it be little females, whether it be hanging out, drinking, partying, drugs, whatever it is. Anything outside of the productive. Right. And if you tap into that, then pretty much, you're going to start seeing certain things fade away. Yep. And those certain opportunities, they're not going to be there anymore, If you want to make it in anything. But, in sports, we're talking about sports.
Yep.
You got to apply yourself, it's kind of like a 24/7, a 24/7 thing.
Absolutely.
For sure, in anything, but in sports, even more, because the window of opportunity, I remember one of my friends telling me one time, the window of opportunity is so small, you feel me?
Right.
It's so small, so there's really no time to, I can't curse you, but there's really no time to mess around,
No,
there's really no time to mess around.
How it comes out, man, we're passionate about that. And
so for like,
and we're talking, right? Yeah, these young guys, right?
Young cats that you can't just think like, oh yeah, everything's going to be straight and I'm going to get it, I'm going to make it. You got to be sharp. You can't miss a beat, so, but,
But I think it serves as a learning experience to others, right? And
the academics,
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? The academics is super important too.
Right.
The academics is super important too. You got to have your academics on point.
You have to have a certain grade point average as well as
to get to certain colleges and stuff like that. Certain SAT scores,
right? To be able to get into certain colleges. So, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, I know if you would have, if you would have wanted it, you would have had it. 'Cause you definitely had the talent, right? But it does serve as a learning experience
For sure.
right?
But for the ones coming after, like if I ever have a kid in my family or something that's into sports or something, you know how to guide them a little better.
Absolutely.
You know what positions to put them in. You know how to kind of like put them in positions to win.
Absolutely.
But everything happens for a reason. So I'm not mad at it. Right. I think I don't regret nothing. Because everything is.
Absolutely.
Everything happens for a
learning experience.
Everything's a learning experience. Everything happens for a reason. And I still carry that. I still carry the my sports background. I still carry that because now I'm a businessman. You know what I'm saying? So like,
Absolutely.
I carried sports with me to this day.
Right.
The competitive state. In any type of business you're in, you're competing.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So I use that same mindset that I used to apply in sports to this day. To this day, I apply it. Everything like business and sports, I kind of run,
They run has shit.
yeah, I run business the same way I used to run, the team. You feel me?
I think a lot of successful people will probably say the same thing, that part of their disciplines and overcoming things and teamwork and all that, they come from sports, right? From their experience with sports. So that's great to hear, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, and if you want to plug where what you're doing and where you're working.
Bro, now running the family business, which was founded by my mom, Dr. Josefina Tour, and I'm running that. It's been a great experience. I've been there for a while now. I've been there for like 15 years. We've grown quite a bit. A learning experience, but we're doing well. We're doing well. We offer, a wide variety of services. It's about a group of 25 people there.
That's awesome.
So we've grown significantly. It's been a learning experience, because we don't come from like a business. I don't have like anybody, business background.
So you're learning as you go, but
as I go, and I love it. I love that
it helps you figure things out, right? And not everybody has a blueprint, right? Not everybody has a particular lineage, but what we do have is hard work and perseverance, right?
Facts.
And that leads me to a passage in the book of Corinthians, right? Where you're talking about having the discipline, not just on the basketball court, but the discipline not to go out and have that drink, or to chase that girl, or to turn the other cheek, right? How you say when somebody tries you, or whatever the case may be, right? And this verse that I have here in Corinthians, it's 1 Corinthians 9, and it's verses 25 through 27. If you bear with me just a moment, I'm going to look that up. It's not. My boy, you're going to have to edit that. But I trust in your skills. 25 to 27. You're going to have to edit the gap, not the actual. All right, so it says, and everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things, right? Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, right? Like trophies or anything that we can have on this earth, right? But we for an imperishable crown. Therefore, I run thus, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and I bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. So that was the New King James Version, which is a little bit confusing to some people. I'm going to go ahead and give you the message, right, of what that verse in Corinthians says, right? It talks about training like an athlete, but from a spiritual sense, right? Which is, what you experienced when you went to Miami Northwest Christian, where you said there was not one fight, right? And that was you know, disciplines, right? And working along with, you know, what we call the Holy Spirit, right? God the Father, you know, God the Son, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, which he gives freely to all of us. We just have to be willing and ready to accept it, right? So it says, you've all been to the stadium and seen the athletes race. Everyone runs, one wins. Run to win. All good athletes train hard. They do it for a gold medal that tarnishes and fades, right? You're after one that's gold eternally. I don't know about you, but I'm running hard for the finish line. I'm giving it everything I've got. No lazy living for me. I'm staying alert and in top condition. I'm not going to get caught napping, telling everyone else about it, and then missing out myself. You know, right? And that's real. For sure. You know, in everything you do, you know how you say, how you've applied, you know, your basketball acumen to your business now, right? And building, right? I think the most important thing is that we build towards God's purpose for our lives, right?
Sure.
And
You always got to apply that too, you know, and I started applying, I mean, I've always had that in my heart, you know, like God's will and God, you feel me? I've always had God, you know, and in the past, like 2 years ago, I love Christmas. I love Christmas, you know what I'm saying? I love Christmas. And 2 years ago, I bought a huge Santa. It's like a life-size Santa. And I put it in the office, and we give out gifts all month. Yeah. For 30 days. Maybe even to like December, because they got the Rey Mago, you know, the Spanish. So we got the Life Santa, and we buy a bunch of toys, hoodies, all that, hoodies for like the teenagers, because you know you can't give a teenager, you know what I'm saying, you got to give something fresh that he's gonna rock, right? And I started doing that as well. So even in the business, you know, you find yourself like trying to win, trying to do that, but you also, you know, I started giving back and I look forward to it, right? You know,
better than
it feels way better, dog. Right? I got pictures. Yeah, show you that. I got pictures. I'll show you some. But so we started doing that, and it's been kind of like a tradition now. And we do that every year. I think I invited you to bring your jit.
Absolutely.
But you never came through.
Well, we'll make it next year, man. I've been busy, man.
But we've been doing that, and bro, I you know, that's amazing. I love it. You know, right?
Beautiful.
You see, that's the sign right there. There's little jits. Right.
And these are memories that they're going to remember forever, right?
Yeah. A lot of them are immigrant kids. So we do a lot of immigration medical exams with this. So there's a lot of kids that pretty much just got here to the country a year ago, 2 years ago. So yeah, probably when they come to me, they probably probably don't have kids. They probably don't have toys. They got toys, you know, but there's not like us here, the kids here, you know, they're spoiled, you know. It's definitely they're definitely very something that I love to do now, that I applied as well to the business, and you just keep getting better as a businessman. And that's pretty much my journey now. My journey now is just try to, you know, become the best businessman that I can. You feel me? The journey's long. So I'm doing that, running the family business, you know, along with the team we had there. You know, so doctor, my brother became a nurse practitioner, so he's one of the healthcare providers there now as well. Juan on his off time, he's a firefighter, but he helps out as well. And then now I'm getting certified to become to do HVAC. Okay. For AC, and that's gonna be my new venture that I'm gonna start taking off with. Still running the family business, but figuring out a way to get that one going, and that's gonna be my long term. So I'm excited about that. Which is pretty much AC. The HVAC is AC and it's that industry. So
yeah, you hear that, young people, there's plenty of hustles, man, and legit hustles, right? Where you can be able to build and have success and be able to multiply and be able to give back as well, like my man Jose is doing, man. But Jose, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the first episode of the Underground Sports Guru Show. Thank you for sharing your journey,
having me. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you've taken this step and you're going on this journey. And
thank you, man.
There was you know, I tap into a lot of people in business, like whether it be my friends that are super successful and stuff like that. And one of my friends is extremely successful. And he's always giving a handout. So like right now, you're like, hey, come over here, come on the podcast. Well, that's a for sure no-brainer, you know, because you can't just ask for help all the time. You got to give it back, you know. So I'm glad that I'm just here, able to sit here and help you move this forward. Right. But one of the things that he told me is like, look, when you start something new, don't expect to be amazing at it. Right. You're gonna go through trials and tribulations, and you're gonna go through that. You're gonna evolve, you know. So he's like, yo, don't be scared of like trying a new venture, trying new this, trying new that, or trying something new within your business and being bad at it. Because more likely you're not gonna be. Some people are natural. Like, you appreciate today. I appreciate doing great, I think. But just know it's gonna be. You got your work cut out for
right. There's going to be trials, right?
That's good.
And I think that's
and
part
don't
of
let that right. Exactly. Don't let that like discourage.
It's part of faith, right? And you know, and the verse that I read, that you just continue to press on forward and, you know, try to perfect the gifts that God has given you, right? To be able to bring glory to his name at the end of the day, you know. And I thank you once again, Jose, for coming on board.
Thank you, my boy.
Episode.
Dale.
What's going on? It's your podcast.
And it said, who got hurt?
Underground, but the
That's
light still shine. Underground sports guru, speaking from the soul. Yeah, we need you. Calling every play with a purpose, turning every field to a service. We're running this race. You lead us through. Faith in our heart and all we do. When the world screams fame, you point to truth. Underground sports, yeah, that's you. You lift up the kid who rides the bench. You pray for the star with the tighten chest. You say more than stats, more than highlight views. Character counts when the pressure moves. You break down film of the hardest days. How a broken ankle still became a praise. How a last place season grew a leader's heart. How a quiet prayer can restart the start. Oh, underground sports guru, speaking from the soul. Yeah, we need you. Calling every play with a purpose, turning every field to a service. We're running this race. You lead us through. Faith in our heart in all we do. When the world screams fame, you point to truth. Underground sports guru, we ride with you. 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 When the lights turn off and the crowd goes home, who are you then when you stand alone? You say knees on the floor, that's the real highlight. That's the win that lasts past the final night. Yeah. Underground sports guru, speaking from the soul. Yeah, we need you. Calling every play with a purpose, turning every field to a service. We're running this race. You lead us through. Faith in our heart in all we do. When the whistle blows, we still choose true. Underground sports guru. Underground, but we see you. Underground sports guru.